been covering the company for almost 7 days a week, 5 years straight. Beginning of it, it was like a lot of liberals out there saying these cars are great. They're great for the environment. It was sort of a liberal mobile. And now here we are in 2025 and it's like you're driving a Trump mobile. It's such an odd 180. But I'm curious to see if conservatives actually go out and buy a Tesla, buy EVs. Because a lot of these people, they don't understand how incredible these vehicles are. Liberals know, they've been buying them for years. But that market's pretty much mostly been tapped out. But the conservative buyers have been a huge untapped market. So it's interesting to see that maybe potentially start to happen.
Welcome to the Gigacast. My name is Gav, here today with Omar and Sawyer. Far's out here in spirit. And today we're going to be talking about a sentiment shift that is happening in America, mainly championed, as many saw, by Trump not only inviting Elon to the White House as he's become a part of the White House, but literally having a lineup of Teslas in front of the White House, examining them himself. But it's really bigger than that, what's happening in the country. Sawyer, I'd love to kick us off and talk about kind of this mindset change that we're seeing occur right now for Tesla, but I think it's a little bit bigger than just Tesla.
Yeah, so for a while, I felt like the loss of potential liberal sales that Tesla would more than offset any potential influx of conservative buyers because of Elon's political involvement and connection with Trump. But in the last week or so, I kind of feel like my opinion on that is starting to change. We're starting to see, obviously, Trump, that whole display at the White House. I don't know if he's actually going to buy that Model S. I assume he will. He said he would cut a check. But that's the first time a Tesla's ever been at the White House. Of course, Biden, a few years before that, held an EV summit. It was the Detroit Big Three, and purposely did not invite Tesla. And they did sort of tout and drive around, an electric Jeep Rubicon or whatever, or Wrangler, I think it was. And
yeah, made in Mexico, right? Yeah.
It's the thing. A lot of Teslas, all their cars are made in America. Every Tesla sold in America is built in America by American workers. But in the last week or so, we've seen some pretty big, prominent conservative voices. Sean Hannity on Fox News during his primetime 9 p.m. slot, I think it's 9 p.m. He was talking about how he's buying a Tesla Model S Plaid. And then he posted just last night his screenshot of the spec that he got. He got a black one with various other things. There you go. And, he gets an average of 3.5 million viewers per night. And most of those people are probably on the older side, baby boomer types. And a lot of those conservative viewers probably haven't historically wanted an EV or even considered an EV. But now that you have people like Trump saying they're buying a Tesla, Sean Hannity saying they're buying a Tesla, I've seen a lot of other conservative prominent voices out there saying, hey, let's support this American brand, American company, and go out and buy Teslas. And then I just found last night, as you see on the screen here, wow, that there has been a surge in, buy a Tesla Google search results, with notable increases in, more Republican leaning states like Nevada, Florida, even Arizona.
Well, funny enough, even with the liberal downcrease, California seems to be top of the list for buying Teslas.
And I did actually search sell a Tesla as well right there. Yeah, you can see the searches for those aren't quite as strong as buy a Tesla. So I thought that was notable. Now, this is not exactly scientific data. So we'll see what the actual numbers are and over the coming quarters. But it is interesting to sort of see this shift. Years ago, I've been a Tesla investor for many years now, been covering the company for almost 7 days a week, 5 years straight. And at the beginning of it, it was like a lot of liberals out there saying these cars are great. They're great for the environment. It was sort of a liberal mobile. And now here we are in 2025 and it's like you're driving a Trump mobile. It's such an odd 180. But I'm curious to see if conservatives actually go out and buy a Tesla, buy EVs. And because a lot of these people, they don't understand how incredible these vehicles are. Liberals know, they've been buying them for years. But that market's pretty much mostly been tapped out. But the conservative buyers have been a huge untapped market. So it's interesting to see that maybe potentially start to happen. It'd be interesting to see once Sean Hannity actually owns this vehicle, how he's going to talk about it going forward. Because once you own a Tesla, a lot of people love telling people how awesome it is.
Yeah. Rogan's not even considered, I would say, even that Republican. I guess now everybody's, far right. But he was also, I think, a big piece of him showing off the Cybertruck on the show that I think drove a lot of people to start looking at it. Omar, see you not in agreement?
I mean, it's been interesting because you've seen surveys. For example, I saw one in the Wall Street Journal recently that shows Democrats do like Elon Musk less, and Republicans do like him more. There's been a big swing in that direction, unsurprisingly. But the problem has been, because of some of the messaging you see from President Trump, for example, even just in recent months, EVs can't go far, they're no good. I don't think you saw the Republicans picking up the slack in car demand as much as we would have liked to offset the Democrats.
Yeah.
So having those conservative leaders, whether it's Trump or Hannity or your favorite conservative talking head, having them come out and say, we're actually buying this, we're showing support, it's significant. And for all the sort of noise about Democrats leaving the brand, I think people who've looked at it seriously have estimated it's not more than about 5% of overall delivery volume. So we're talking about maybe 18,000 units lost on net from this type of political activity. If you can start to offset that with conservative buyers, I think it does help quite a bit. You don't need to get every conservative, but if you get enough to offset the Democrats who don't want to buy, that could get you into a situation where it makes growth a little bit easier in the US market.
Have we ever seen a car or a car brand politicized this much before, where it's kind of almost directly associated with a political candidate?
No, I mean, this is pretty unprecedented. If you want to go back to maybe like World War II, maybe that would be like the closest precedent, but I don't think so. I don't think we've seen this.
Yeah, and it's sad because really every president should be celebrating Tesla. Tesla is one of the most incredible achievements, I think, of the US, of US capital markets, entrepreneurship, technology. This is the only reason we're competitive against China in the EV race. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I think you should be supporting American workers. I think you should be supporting an American company. But when Biden held his EV summit, he invited every union leader and every union automaker, but they excluded Tesla, despite the fact that Tesla was selling more EVs than all of those brands combined. So in a way, it's always been kind of politicized since the beginning, but it's just that in the beginning, it was seen as a heavily democratic brand because climate change and the environment were seen as very liberal. Actually, I was just talking to Grok. I said, give me a list of 10 stereotypically liberal things. Number 2 was driving a Prius or a Tesla. So it's always been kind of politicized, but politicized to the left. But the brand's changed. It's about so much more than just being clean now. It's about FSD. It's about the technology, right? Trump's famous line, wow, it's all computer. It's so true. And there's a much bigger appeal here. And I think hopefully this actually takes us to a place where EVs are viewed as less partisan, where it's not just a democratic thing, but a technology leap all Americans want to make.
Yeah, it's worth noting that, you know, when Elon Musk owns 13% of Tesla, that means 80% of Tesla is owned by people not Elon Musk. And, you know, Tesla is one of the biggest companies in the S&P 500. So a lot of Americans sort of indirectly own Tesla stock. So when you're hurting the financial performance of the company, you're hurting Elon Musk. But even if Elon lost all of his Tesla stake, he's still like worth well over $100 billion because of his SpaceX stock alone is worth like $150 billion. So he's not hurting. And I'll also say that I would say like most of the people that are building these cars are probably lean more towards on the liberal side rather than the conservative side. So you're supporting liberal jobs, if you buy a Tesla. I mean, that's not really the point, but the point is you're supporting American jobs. Whereas if you buy like a Chevy Equinox or Chevy Bolt or something, or let's say a Mustang Mach-E, those things are being built in Mexico.
So
yeah, it's so true. You really want to support American jobs. You're supporting jobs in California. A lot of this does feel like liberals attacking themselves, attacking other liberals who are driving electric cars for picking a clean car, after they just told them a few years ago that you have to switch to one of these cars or the world is going to end. And now they're attacking people for it. They're attacking Californian jobs and Californian manufacturing. I mean, Tesla's the last car factory in California, and they're trying to destroy that. It does feel a little bit like they're kind of attacking themselves.
So I got a couple of questions. First off, with the tariffs that are happening now from Trump's side of things, do you think that is going to push more of these jobs back in America? More of these other car manufacturers are going to bring back those factories and create the cars here, and they'll have less of like a claim to like we're that brand that makes our cars in America?
Well, at least with like the plans there was plans for Giga Mexico, a Tesla Giga Mexico factory to be built. And that was announced in March of almost 2 years to the day, March of 2023. But I think with Trump becoming president, that plan is pretty much off the table at this point, which means, and then this kind of follows up with Elon's announcement that Tesla is going to, this happened yesterday, Tesla's announcement to double U.S. vehicle production output within the next 2 years. And I think this was already sort of the plan based on their Cybercab production plans. There are more affordable models coming out. There's an idea that they could produce more Model Ys because there'd be more demand with this new refresh version. So I'm not really sure what Elon exactly meant by that. But I think this would mean last year, I think like 665,000, an estimated 665,000 vehicles were produced in the US by Tesla. So this doubling would bring it to like 1.3-ish million. Something like that. So
yeah, I think his point in making that comment was twofold. One, to remind people, Tesla is actually growing and expanding. The media narrative is that the company's collapsing. That's actually not true. The most recently reported quarter, they delivered more cars than they ever had. I think this year they have the new Model Y. They have new, more affordable models. I wouldn't take a sales collapse for granted. And when he really talked about doubling US production capacity, if you remember the Mexico factory they were supposed to build, when he talked on the earnings call, someone asked him, well, what's the update on that factory? He said, well, if Trump gets into office and he puts these tariffs into effect, that's not something we're going to want to have invested in. And I think they shifted their plans to move that production into Giga Texas instead, rather than building it in Mexico. So it was a little bit of a sort of pat on the back for Trump, giving him a talking point, a policy win, saying, hey, we're building more American jobs. We're building them in Texas. And I'm not sure how long these tariffs are really going to last, but Tesla's done a really great job at localizing their supply chain, not only here in the United States, but the Shanghai supply chain, the Berlin supply chain. It's all localized. And that's a good advantage to have when you get into a trade situation like we're.
I think with tariffs, obviously Teslas have the highest percentage of American parts than any other brand. I think it's about like upwards of 75% for some models. But that does mean the other percentage mostly comes from Mexico. So if there are some tariffs for Canada and Mexico, Tesla is going to be hurt to some degree, but their competitors will be hurt more. So in that regard, I don't know if you can argue it's an advantage for Tesla, but they'll be hurt less than the competitors.
I want to talk a little bit more about kind of this disconnect in a few different areas, both with kind of the political side as well as the production side. So I'll just touch on the numbers first, because Omar, you were just speaking to that. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect, right? How do you have the best selling car in the world and people also think that your company is failing? That's one for me where I look at it, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, you're looking up there and like the second best selling car is like the Toyota Corolla. And then does anyone think that Toyota's failing? No. Right. And so that's one piece for me, which I look at. But then on the other side, as a Mag 7, Tesla does make a lot less profit right now, than those other companies that are in that Mag 7. So I think people look at it and say, you're looking a lot more future looking, right? Different pieces. So I just want to get your guys' thoughts on those kind of pieces, on where you think the disconnect is, that people are saying you have the best selling car, but you're also a failing company. But then at the same time, pointing at the bottom line of like, okay, you do make a lot less profit than these other companies that you're being valued against.
I think it comes down to two things: expectations and growth. I think Elon had set this expectation of quick and fast growth with the company. And then we sort of saw that slow down last year with, sales being down 1% year over year worldwide. And, I think over the last 5 years, Tesla's really only introduced one new vehicle, and that's the Cybertruck. And there is, it's really only sold in North America. And there is sort of a limited market for that because one, it's a truck, but also it's a pretty crazy design. So I think a lot of people wanted Tesla to introduce more affordable models earlier. It sounds like they're going to start to do that over the next quarter, 1 to 2 quarters. But I think that ultimately that there's, especially for Tesla bulls, there's been a lot of expectation in recent years that Tesla would grow, 50% CAGR, and potentially sell upwards of 20 million vehicles a year by 2030. That was Elon's goal a few years ago. It sounds like that's not necessarily the goal anymore. At least they haven't talked about it recently. So I think we're just sort of in this period where we're kind of waiting for a lot of things to play out, a lot of new models to come out, and we'll see how it goes. But I think ultimately with Cybercab coming online, next year, that's going to be such a game changer, in that people's view of the overall car ownership experience will sort of change, because people will be like, well, I don't really need to own a car anymore. Of course, it'll still take years, but that'll be interesting to see to play out.
Yeah, with regards to the Mag 7, I think the difference really is you have most of these Mag 7 companies that kind of feel like they're in decline. With Apple, you're not seeing a lot of the innovation that characterized the growth years of the company, new product lines, new form factors, new designs that are driving sales. Google, Facebook, they're not exactly reinventing themselves. Tesla is the one company in the Mag 7 that has massive growth businesses that are still nascent. So I think that's kind of the divide there. And Tesla's roadmap is probably the most exciting out of any of the Mag 7. But on the automotive side, I think Sawyer's right. We're used to Tesla just growing like crazy every year, 40%, 50% sales growth over the previous year. So 1% decline in automotive deliveries might not seem like much, but when you're growing like crazy every year, it's extremely unusual to see a year where deliveries decline. And Tesla has said that we're really in between 2 major growth waves with the Model Y and some new products that we have coming out in the future. So that's what they've said about it. But I think the market is kind of trying to digest this. They're trying to digest the politics, and they're trying to figure out what the sales trajectory of the brand is. Is this a brand that's going to continue growing, which is really what the stock is priced for? Or is this a brand that's actually in terminal decline and where sales are going to fall due to competition, politics, and a list of other factors? So that's really the key thing. And here in the first quarter, you've got potentially a demand side disruption from some of these political activities, but you've also got a supply side disruption with the Model Y. And a lot of the narrative has been, okay, deliveries are tanking because everybody hates Elon, but the supply side changes kind of cloud the picture there. For the first quarter, we're probably looking at, I think Troy's latest numbers were 356,000. That compares to 386,000 units delivered in the year ago quarter, which itself wasn't a great quarter. So if they're coming in substantially below Q1 2024 deliveries, it doesn't matter what excuse you have, or if you say it's about the Model Y, the narrative that the media is going to tell is that the sales are collapsing. Now, if they can actually deliver growth in the rest of the year, maybe that changes. But there is a reality that deliveries are showing, as Tesla said, that they are between growth waves. And the market is essentially trying to figure out, is there going to be another growth wave? Or is that just wishful thinking?
I mean, look, you have one product, the Model Y, which makes up 50% of Tesla's overall revenue. That's pretty nuts. That's one product. And they're transitioning from the old Model Y to the refreshed Model Y simultaneously across 4 factories on 3 continents all at once. And it's their number one money generator. So naturally, if you're going to have some lost production in Q1 because of that, thus earnings are going to be down, or revenue is going to be down to some degree. Obviously, you're not going to have as many cars to sell because inventory is going to dry up due to there not being enough supply. So a lot of these articles, yes, there definitely is some level of lower demand due to Elon diving into politics, certainly on the European side. But these articles that are saying, sales are down 70% just because of that, it's disingenuous because there's also a supply issue because they haven't been able to ramp up fully the new Model Y yet. So I think a lot of people leave out that context.
Do you think that the tariffs are potentially going to affect, I know that there's been a big push to have a cheaper car, a $25,000 model, things along those lines. Do you think that that could get disrupted when you were talking about, parts and things like that coming into America?
I'm not so worried about it. Well, in China, with their Shanghai Gigafactory, they have around 95% localization of their supply chain. So really, they're not importing a lot for their cars. In the US, it's a little different. I think it's lower, probably 70% or something like that. And then they have to source, roughly 25% from Mexico, a little bit from Canada and whatnot. It sort of remains to be seen. I also do wonder will there be any cannibalization of the Model 3 and the Y with this new, more affordable model? Is this just a stripped down Model 3 and Y, or is this like a whole different, actual smaller vehicle based on like the Model Y and 3 platform? If that's the case, then maybe there won't be as much cannibalization. But if it's just a stripped down 3 and Y, we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like it's still a lot in the air how long these tariffs last. Are they going to be here long term? Are they not? And my hope is that they aren't here long term because they're not that great for being able to price vehicles affordably. But if they do stay long term, a more affordable vehicle will be more needed than ever. And it'll maybe be a little more expensive than it would have been, but it'll still bring down prices at a time when new vehicle prices are going to be higher across the board as a result of the tariffs. So we'll have to see what happens. But I do think Tesla is at an advantage in terms of their domestic production capacity. As Sawyer said, nobody else makes every car sold in the United States in the United States. And that's going to make them look cheaper comparatively compared to other cars on the market. So I hope we get a resolution to these trade conflicts. I hope these tariffs aren't here long term. But if they are, Tesla's going to become comparatively more affordable than other brands in the US market.
I would encourage people to, this is probably pretty boring, but I would encourage people to go on NHTSA website, NHTSA, and they have a parts they're legally, automakers in the US are required to submit what percent of their parts come from the US and Canada and Mexico. And often on that report, it's pretty easy to digest. It has all the auto manufacturers, all the cars, variant by variant, and it tells you what percent. So you can kind of go through and be like, the Ford F-150, only 33% of its parts content come from the US and Canada, and the rest comes from, like, let's say Mexico or China or wherever else. So you can kind of look at that list and look at, this is going to be the brand or the vehicle that's more impacted by the tariffs than, let's say, Tesla, which has like a higher 70 to 75% North America or US and Canada parts content percentage. So it's not an exact, you can't come up with exact numbers just based on that list, but it does give you some good insight.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We'll see what happens, let alone Canada tariffs and everything like that. I know that we're getting into the weeds there. So I just wanted to bring us back to kind of what we started with, which is a bit of this disconnect where I think a lot of the liberal folks, now people that lean left, see Elon Musk as a bit of a supervillain. And I'm, trying to understand some of the pieces why. We talk about, of course, hey, if you're pro-America, jobs in America, cars made in America. If you like accountability for the government, they're going in and they're stringing things out and trying to figure out, where's money going? Who's it being spent on? The arguments I hear against are, the way that they're going about it, just completely cutting departments, then trying to hire people back. You could be more surgical with it. You could do some pieces there. I think that outside of that, certainly if you're left leaning, you're going to just associate a lot of the things that Elon's doing with backing Trump and vice versa, the political, Republican Party and things like that, and say, okay, well, he aligns with a lot of those values. So, but it's also like the entire political parties have shifted over the last 10 to 15 years as well. So I'm just curious to get your guys' thoughts on how there just happened to be this giant shift. And it's not just buying a Tesla is a Democrat to a Republican thing, but it's kind of this bigger shift of the company and the people involved with it and so much more. I'm just curious to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, it's funny. When I think of a brand a car brand that most closely aligns with liberal values, Tesla actually is the number one name that comes to mind. They're doing more for the environment than any other company, really. Not just car company, probably any company. And they have a whole supply chain impact report that comes out annually that you can go through, and it talks about their supply chain things, their ethical sourcing, ethical labor. They even have like a passport card that tracks certain materials, and they even talk about recycling. I don't know how many other companies do recycling. Even Tesla has their own in-house recycling. It's a small operation, but they're still working on it. But I do think some liberals have their anger with, Elon and DOGE. There is some fair criticism in that. Elon and the team probably could be more methodical with their approach. Omar and I are certainly used to this, having covered Tesla for so long and his other companies. Elon's very come in like a wrecking ball, shake things up and fix things later if we need to. I don't know if that's necessarily the right approach for on a government scale. Having said that, whatever we've been doing in the past hasn't been working. So I'm all for trying a new approach, and I'm okay with mostly of how things been going down. It hasn't been perfect. But I think it should be said that they have been fixing mistakes where they've been spotted. And for instance, on the DOGE website, there was a contract that was mislabeled for an amount that they cut that was much higher than what it actually was. They quickly fixed it and they adjusted. So I think a lot of people are in support of cutting waste, corruption and whatnot. But I think it's just the man that's doing that pisses a lot of people off, really. And unfortunately, Tesla owners are being impacted by that through, vandalism, threats, hate, harassment, and whatnot, which is unfortunate because a lot of these people bought their cars well before Elon decided to dive into politics.
Yeah, go for it, Omar. And then I have like 2 follow-ups.
Yeah, I think with politics, it's inevitable. A good portion of people are going to dislike you. And it doesn't matter if you do everything perfectly or really what you do at all. There's going to be people who are attacking you, who are smearing you. But ultimately, the judge will be the legacy you leave behind. I mean, there have been a lot of examples. For example, after the 2016 election, Mark Zuckerberg faced a lot of attacks. He was called in front of Congress to testify. They talked to him about the Cambridge Analytica scandal and other scandals that they felt led to Trump winning the election. Facebook stock got crushed. Zuckerberg got crushed. Look at where they are today. Has it stopped Meta? Zuck did a rebrand. Meta's doing great. Everybody loves Zuck. Those same people who are saying boycott Facebook, delete your Facebook account, they're now loving Zuck. And the long-term outlook can often be very difficult or very different from what people feel in the moment. I also think about Paul Volcker in the 70s and 80s. I mean, in the 70s, we had massive inflation that looks this inflation run looked like a joke by comparison. We're talking, double-digit inflation.
Yeah.
And Paul Volcker came in and he said, look, we need to take a different approach. We need to think about the money supply, clamping down on inflation. And he let the federal funds rate float up to 20% plus. And people hated the guy. They were protesting. They said, fire Paul Volcker, get rid of this guy. He's destroying our ability to get a house, to get a car, to live the American dream. And people were very upset at him, and it was very painful. But ultimately, the actions that he took set the United States up for price stability that allowed them to grow in the 80s and 90s in a way that I think would have been more difficult if we didn't have that price stability. And now people look back at Paul Volcker and they think he did the right thing. He stood up for what was right, and he got inflation in check, even with all the public opposition. And it's too early to say what DOGE's legacy will be, but I do think that if they are able to make substantial progress on some of these things, on inflation, on the deficit, that's what people will remember. And you can't be scared by these people who want to attack you when you get into the fray of politics. That's just kind of the game you're playing.
While it's sad that obviously some people are in the government are losing their jobs, I think ultimately that's a sacrifice that's probably necessary if we want to get back to a sustainable path for the government spending and whatnot. And and ultimately, years from now, liberals, conservatives, everybody will benefit from the work that they're doing now. It's not just going to be conservatives benefiting. Come on. It's going to be everybody, including liberals that hate Elon right now. So yes, there's going to be short-term impacts and there are going to be people that are going to have to be laid off. But ultimately, I think for the health of the whole system and a more sustainable system, it's a necessary sacrifice, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I'm curious to see how people's opinions continue to progress over these next couple of years, right, as they see, because it seems like Elon doesn't really give a crap at the moment. Last thing I wanted to ask on this topic before we talk about your Giga Texas visit was a post of Sawyer's that went very viral this past week. If you know what I'm talking about, this was I
did not expect this.
I believe Kia put this up on their official Instagram for Germany or something like that.
Norway account.
Their Norway. If you want to pull this up, Evan, I think it was. I saw it at like 60,000 likes last. I just want to get your thoughts on basically if you want to explain to people what this post was and why maybe it went so viral.
Yeah, Evan, I don't know if you want to pull it up. There you go. I don't have to. Perfect. So they had their Kia Norway account. It wasn't the main Kia account on Instagram, but the Kia Norway account posted this photo with a bumper or a rear sticker saying, "I bought this after Elon went crazy." Sort of playing at and this was posted a few weeks ago. I should note that it wasn't just like this week that they posted that on Instagram. It had been up for a while, but no one had saw it because the Kia Norway account only had like 4,000 followers. But I think it was sort of a jab at the current climate and whatnot. And it's funny you say this because just now, Kia has issued a statement based on that. And Kia did delete that post, by the way, after it went viral. And they said, quote, "We posted this a few weeks ago, picking up on an ongoing trend in social media. This was only meant as humor between two competitors from our side. The goal was to show that there are other options for those looking for an electric car. The idea came from us in Norway and not initiated by Kia centrally. We understand that humor resonates differently in different countries. We had no intention of offending or upsetting anyone. To avoid confusion or unnecessarily provoking anyone, we have chosen to take down the post." And that's from official Kia Norway's head of communications.
Look at the power. Look at the power you have, Sawyer. No, he hadn't even seen that post.
Yeah, pretty wild. I mean, obviously, it's just a bumper sticker. It's like not the biggest world, but I don't think it was the best look for their brand, honestly. Like you shouldn't be saying like, "Oh, I only bought this Kia because the other guy went crazy." No, your car should be the number one choice because it's the best product, not because the other product was a no-go because of politics. But anyway, not a huge deal. They took it down, whatever.
Right. I mean, it's marketing at the end of the day. They're trying to sell some cars. Maybe they don't have too many talking points about the EV3 and that's the best they could come up with. But at a time when people are shooting up Tesla dealerships, I'm going to let this one slide from Kia. This isn't at the top of my problem list. There's probably some poor Norwegian intern who is running the social media account and thought he just came up with the funniest post before Sawyer put him on blast. And, we're sorry to whoever that Norwegian intern was for getting you in trouble. But, it's all love.
Honestly, I had no clue this would blow up as much as it did. I mean, if I knew that, I probably wouldn't have posted it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Not a huge deal, I guess.
I thought it was pretty funny. Have you guys been inside of the EV3?
No.
I've seen some Kia EVs and Hyundai EVs. They're decent cars.
It's funny. I actually love Kia's EV design language. I think it's fantastic. They should talk about that, not the other stuff.
Yeah, I actually got into Kia. I might have been the EV3 a week or two ago, and I actually, when they pulled up, it was an Uber. I thought it was a Tesla at first. Just from, I don't know, I guess the outside, it was kind of dark, and then the door, they do it the other way, but the handle pushes in, kind of like a Tesla, but on the other side. And I got out of the car. I was like, "What type of car is this?" The guy's like, "Oh, it's a Kia." So, interesting.
Yeah, I think people are going to be like, "Well, Elon makes Teslas political." That's Elon. It's his personal account. It's a little different than like an official company account posting similar stuff. So that's why I brought it up. But
Do you imagine if the Tesla account just started retweeting like Elon's stuff?
That's what I mean. Like they wouldn't do that because it would
Yeah,
be bad look for the brand, and I wouldn't want them to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about Giga Texas a little bit.
Yeah.
You had the opportunity to visit. You shared some pictures and videos, some stuff with your subs, I believe, as well, that maybe not everyone else
Yeah.
got.
So I got invited to take unofficial delivery of my new Model Y launch series at the Giga Texas factory, right where the car was born, a few hundred feet away, which was a pretty cool experience. And they had it wasn't like a live stream event or anything. It was just a low key event. I think around 100 people picked up, roughly maybe 75 to 100 people picked up their new Model Ys. All of them were local Texas residents. I was the only one that I think that actually flew in for the event. But we got to get a tour of the new Model Y line. Yeah, there's some of the photos. We got to see the Cybertruck line. I got to see a Gigapress in action, which was pretty cool. We got to ride through this new Cybertruck Cyber Tunnel, which is at the end of the Cybertruck line. And they'll go through the tunnel eventually autonomously to save a round trip going around the factory to the outbound car lot, which is pretty cool.
Did we get a
overall
picture of the Giga
Yeah, there we
Press?
go. No, that wasn't allowed naturally.
Oh, you should have told them that we have a podcast called the Gigacast and that you needed it for those purposes. But yeah, this is super cool.
Yeah, I got to meet some cool people. I couldn't post photos of most stuff or even the people that I met, but that's okay. That's fine. I was able to share what I could. So, but I got to see some cyber cabs running around. I was able to post that Cybertruck photo. But it's a huge factory. It's 11 million square feet of total floor space. Jeez. And eventually you got the Model Y will be built there, the Cybertruck, the Cyber Cab, the more affordable models, the Optimus robot. You have all these things that are going to be built in one building. And, and there's the Cortex supercomputer cluster, which is like worth billions of dollars of GPUs. So it's like all that in one factory it's pretty wild to think about. And the building now with that Cortex expansion is almost a mile long. So standing like right in front of it is like a crazy experience. Yeah, they gave me a Cybertruck voucher for a 24-hour test drive, the belt buckle. Yeah. So thanks Tesla for that. That was a lot of fun. Pretty cool experience. Got to go Cybertruck off-roading next to the cathode facility. Pretty fun.
Oh, wow. So you were driving that?
Yeah, that's me in that truck, and then Tesla VP in the other truck.
How was the off-roading experience in it?
It was incredible because, typically with like if you're going off-roading, you have to quickly turn the wheel really quickly and your hands are like shuffling over one another. But with the Cybertruck steer-by-wire, it's so easy to just maneuver this thing around. And the Cybertruck was sliding around really nicely. It handled the tires handled the roads really nicely. And it's super quick. We were driving a Cyber Beast off-road, which is nuts. 2.6 0 to 60. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. And as you can see, obviously people love the content. I saw you got the quote tweet from Tesla as well, Tesla North America. I think that the Tesla accounts only follow employees now, but I think Sawyer was the last one to get unfollowed before it was just employees.
Yeah, no, they only follow employees or like executives and stuff, which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cybertruck is honestly just such a blast to drive, and Giga Texas is amazing. They bring in raw material, they make cathode there, they make battery cells there, they put it into a battery pack that becomes the floor of the car. They manufacture the car body, they stamp the panels, they make the seats, and then they even train the AI model that drives the car all in one location. It's just a massive, massive facility. But I think this new Model Y delivery event is pretty symbolic. If you remember 2020, the Model Y was the trump card that really blew up the shorts. The shorts were feeling really confident with Model 3. They said, look, Model 3 is just a sedan. The market's honestly moving away from sedans. Tesla's invested all this money and time to get the Model 3 up, and we don't think there's that big of a market for it. This company is going down. And they then took the Model 3 platform, extended it into the Model Y, and said, well, we've got a new vehicle. It came to market sooner than expected, and it drove massive sales growth over the next few years that really blew up most of the short sellers. So an update to the Model Y, really kind of bringing it into itself with a new design, I think is really significant. And it potentially mirrors what we're seeing with some of these new, more affordable vehicles, which kind of like the Model Y are coming out of nowhere. We don't know too much about them, but Tesla says they think they have it. It has the potential to kick off the next wave of sales growth. So it is kind of interesting to look back at the last 5 years since the start of the Model Y. The Model Y really changed Tesla's fortunes, and hopefully the new Model Y drives sales growth in the same way.
Yeah, the new Model Y is, I think, a bigger upgrade than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I sat in it, I checked it out in person. It truly feels like a much more premium vehicle than the old Model Y does. And I think I'm probably going to make a video on like every single little change on the new version versus the old version. I feel like that would be interesting for people. But yeah, I encourage people to go check it out. It's a great vehicle. It's the #1 best-selling car in the world. I mean, obviously, it's a great vehicle.
Yeah, they basically, Tesla pretty much could just make an event around Sawyer coming to Giga Texas. I don't know if you saw, but cumulatively your post from that did about 42 million views and got shared out by Tesla and Elon. So I think they might invite you back again soon.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty epic to see. Do you guys think that they'd have a vehicle? One of the things that I really like about the Cybertruck is that you have that distance off the ground and kind of like a bigger area of shock above the wheels. The Model Y is an interesting kind of crossover because it's still pretty low to the ground. It's not quite like so high off. Do you think they'd have some type of vehicle that's a little bit more like in between, where it's not a truck, but it's more like kind of like a RAV4 and some of these others that are a little bit more jacked off the ground?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, maybe they do like an off-road version of the Model Y. That'd be cool.
Well, the thing about the Model Y is that when you have it lower to the ground, the range is longer. So that's why they've kind of done that. The Cybertruck's great for off-roading. It's got that air suspension that you can actually lower up and down. So you can go on your screen and say, I want a higher or lower suspension, higher for off-roading, lower for highways. Maybe we'd see something like that make it to the Model 3 and Y eventually, but I don't think it's going to come anytime soon, just because there's a lot of cost associated with that air suspension.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. Just something that I was thinking about. I think we covered a lot of really good stuff today. Hopefully people that are maybe have some concerns around the political climate with Tesla, hopefully this assuaged some of those thoughts.
I think in general, we should expect continued politicization of the Tesla brand as long as Elon is working in DOGE, which is probably going to be sometime for another like a year or so. But it's also important to remember we're only like 6 weeks into this thing. It's still pretty early. They're still figuring out the best way to go about things, So I'm hoping things calm down. I mean, probably not, but I hope they do, especially for the sake of Tesla owners. Because like it sucks to just, having bought your car years ago and then all of a sudden people are vandalizing it or attacking you because you bought the best car in the world. I mean, that sucks. So.
Yeah, I don't think things are coming down after that. I need you to be more aggressive. Tweet that was put out. I think it's only up from there. But yeah, I would agree with you. Definitely don't vandalize, don't break the law. That's just my advice to everybody. Omar, any other general thoughts on these topics?
Look, I mean, I just think nothing has changed. The world still needs autonomous electric vehicles. Tesla's still making them at a rate that eclipses every other American legacy auto manufacturer, or really every legacy auto manufacturer worldwide. If we want to compete with China, if we want clean air, if we want safe roads, we need these cars. And it's just so insane to attack it. It feels like a lot of noise. My thesis hasn't really changed that much compared to all the drama. I don't think sales are going to be as impacted as people expect. I don't think we're going to see a 50 or 75% decline in Tesla sales this year, although that is what you've seen in the news. And you go out in the world, everybody's driving Teslas here in LA. Nobody's angry. Nobody's trying to vandalize it or worried about Elon's politics. You see a lot of people making noise, but I think they're going to fail to stop Tesla, like so many groups before that have attacked Tesla in the past. And this company has a really bright future. That hasn't changed. The products are still the best in the world. So go support, check out the products, go test drive, go get one yourself, and push back against these people who are trying to destroy the company for no other reason other than that the CEO voted for the wrong guy.
There's a lot of exciting stuff in Tesla's product pipeline that really have nothing to do with quarterly car sales. So a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. So many other pieces that come together with it, which is where I think the confidence in the company comes, but also it's not going to happen in a day, a week, a year. It's going to take some time. So good thoughts there. Real quick, just some things to hit on. We hit 1,000 followers on YouTube. Thank you all. Appreciate all the subs. If you are still watching this video, you're probably a big fan of us, or you hate us so much that you watch all the way to the end. Either way, we appreciate you. If you are still here, go ahead and drop us a comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts on how you think what Elon is doing is going to affect Tesla. So maybe you can throw in your own opinion. Maybe we could take a look at some of these comments, double back on them. Make sure, of course, you're subscribed to the YouTube. If you're checking out our Twitter, over 11K, I believe now on Twitter, follow us there as well. We love all the interactions and we try to get back to you on as many as we can. So again, big thank you to everyone that tunes in and makes this possible. We really appreciate the feedback that we get. And obviously, seeing a lot of interest really makes it exciting for us to do on a weekly basis. Take care, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.